We started this whole series talking about Count Nicholas von Zinzendorf and Herrnhut and how they started this compound in Germany that housed these missionaries that went out and changed the world as we know it. They started what we know as the modern missions movement. They started a prayer gathering where somebody was praying every hour, and it lasted over 100 years. These people were incredible. They went out and they changed the world. They were salt and light to the rest of the world. But over time, Herrnhut lost its way. It wasn't what it once was. And typically that's what happens with movements. Typically with a movement, we start out with this ideal, there are the core values there, and then over time things get boxed up and it loses its essence and it starts to corrode, and over time it dies. And so a couple hundred years later, the Nazi party was looking for bells because they were melting the bells down to make weapons. And they came into Herrnhut, they burnt Herrnhut down, and they took all the bells. After World War II was over, you had a group of Moravians that were looking for bells because there was one structure in Herrnhut that still stood, and it was the bell tower. And I got to go and walk around Herrnhut a couple of months ago and see this for myself. And as they're looking for bells to fill their belfry, they find this one that they knew was original from Herrnhut with Count Nicholas von Zinzendorf, and it's because of the inscription that was on the bell. And here's what it said: Herrnhut should only continue as long as the purposes of God go forth unhindered. He had this understanding that he wasn't the point, that his movement wasn't the point. It was, if this thing ever loses its essence and its saltiness, its light, if it ever loses that, let it die. Let it go away, because it's not about my name. It's not about my movement. It's not about the thing that I started. It's about glorifying God and bringing his message of salvation to the people that need hope. It's about bringing his healing. It's about bringing his transformation. That's the only thing he cared about. And if you study his life, we have a lot of notes in Box Wine and Bad Ideas. This is we're wrapping up this series now, Box Wine and Bad Ideas. You can go read it. There's a link in the description below. But one of the parallels that I found, I love history and I love reading and understanding these patterns and then seeing where we are today and how it relates. And one of the quotes that I found, the first book that I wrote was called The Millennial Manifesto, and I was writing about George Washington. I was writing about the Constitutional Convention. And here's a quote that I found from Washington. This was at the Constitutional Convention, and he stands up, he says, "It is too probable that no plan we propose will be adopted. Perhaps another dreadful conflict is to be sustained. If to please the people we offer what we ourselves disapprove, how can we afterwards defend our work? Let us raise a standard to which the wise and honest can repair. The event is in the hand of God." He had the wisdom to understand they didn't get slavery abolished in that meeting. He understood at this point in the meeting went on, 3 months in the heat of Philadelphia in the summer with no AC. He's like, we need to leave. This isn't going to work. They weren't coming to an agreement. But he said, what we need to do in this Constitution, we're not going to fix everything right now. And the things that we write right now might one day become irrelevant. So what we need to do is we need to understand the principles that we need to live by. We need to set a standard that when all this goes to crap, people can come back and look, and the wise and honest can repair the essence of what it is that we're trying to build. That was the beauty of what Count Nicholas von Zinzendorf did with Herrnhut. It was the beauty of what George Washington said at the Constitutional Convention. And Paul in 1 Corinthians, he says, I'm building on the only foundation that can be built on. It's the foundation of Jesus. And he said, but if you build using wood, hay, straw, or costly stones, the day will bring what you're building to light. The fire will test the quality of each person's work, and it'll be shown for what it is. And ultimately, that's the hope in this. It's not about any one person's name. Like if you're in ministry, if you are a believer, if you want to see revival, you want to see people coming to Christ, you want to see movement. Anytime we read about this stuff, it's the point. We want to see it. We want to experience it. We want to be a part of it. We want to play our part in it. We want to do this. But what I love is going back and seeing a leader like Zinzendorf and the heart that he had behind the movement, because it was never about him. It was always about giving God the glory.